Okay. Good morning. Say good morning, everybody.
Good morning again.
Yeah. So where are we starting today? I have no idea where to start today, honestly.
I don't really either. I feel like everything's different, shifted, kind of crazy. But in a very good way if I let it. I could not let it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's just like you can't even look at it. You just have to go, yeah, it's good. Yeah, whatever. It's good. It's good. It's just good.
That's about right. Yeah,
So,
it's so funny because every time you try to focus in on it, it changes. So it's like, nope.
right, and your mind goes, no, you have to hold still for a minute so I can wrap myself around it. And then you're just lost.
Yeah.
If you try to do that.
Yeah. Nope and nope. I got a really great something. I don't know. I was in meditation this morning, and I guess another part of my consciousness said there was something about transcending, being free of. It was like I wrote down in my journal, transcend all limitations and be open to all possibility.
Yeah.
Which, in itself is a great statement to recognize, right? But then, of course, the mind goes, well, then what if you just say I'm free of all limitation and da-da-da? And it's like, well, this is how it came to me up there.
Right. Well, and, I start thinking about the words, and it's like infinite still is finite.
Yeah.
And limitless is still limit. And, and I start getting in that, and it's like, then it's just free. But the mind's like, but that's not specific enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like,
I know. And then it feels like too much energy to give it, right? Just there goes my camera again. Excuse me. My camera just keeps on doing stuff this morning. So it took me a while to get on. I'm like, futzing with it because it's not sticking. There we go. That's better.
well, I think that what I find is that my mind has a definition of freedom that can't possibly be what I'm talking about because it's so limited.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't really have the word for what I'm.
Did you see the thing that I posted yesterday that had that whole like Native American, not Native, it's like Mexican, some saying it was really perfect for all the stuff that we talked about. Did you see that? They're talking about freedom?
No, I did not see that. Right. Was that the one where you spoke to like family members and?
Yeah, that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I read the very first part of it before it was like see more.
So I think it's a really good, this is a really good thing for everyone. So I thought we could start with talking about that. Would probably be a good thing too.
Yeah, because I've been thinking a lot about the remembering and creating beyond remembering, and it's like that's just not something that we're ever taught how to do
and be comfortable with.
Right.
So let's see if I can find it here.
So that's it's trying to conjure up what that level of freedom looks like, feels like, tastes like, smells like, and senses that we aren't even aware of.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is, it's not anymore, and we go back to what we've talked about to sort of connect it all together, is it's not tastes like, feels like,
exactly,
looks like, or whatever, because that's where we're still stuck in managing from the 3D, because now is time to allow ourselves to sense differently altogether.
It's almost like it's defined by the senses of the mind, and it needs to be defined by the senses of the heart.
Right. Yeah.
So it's that other knowing.
Right. And it's, okay, so this is what it said. I release my parents from the feeling that they've already failed me. I release my children from the need to bring pride to me, that they may write their own ways according to their hearts, that whisper all the time in their ears. I release my partner from the obligation to complete me. I do not lack anything. I learn with all beings all the time. I thank my grandparents and forefathers who have gathered so that I can breathe life today. I release them from past failures and unfulfilled desires, aware that they have done their best to resolve their situations within the consciousness they had at the moment. I honor you, I love you, and I recognize you as innocent. I am transparent before your eyes, so they know that I do not hide or owe anything other than being true to myself and to my very existence, that walking with the wisdom of the heart, I am aware that I fulfill my life project, free from invisible and visible family loyalties that might disturb my peace and happiness, which are my only responsibilities. I renounce the role of savior, of being one who unites or fulfills the expectations of others. Learning through and only through love, I bless my essence, my way of expressing, even though somebody may not understand me. I understand myself because I alone have lived my experience, my history, because I know myself. I know who I am, what I feel, what I do, and why I do it. I respect and approve myself. I honor the divinity in me and in you. We are free.
Yeah, that's tremendous.
Yeah. I was like, it just encompasses everything. And it's perfect.
Yeah.
And that seems to be, and funny, the card I pulled this morning was a freedom card, or liberation card.
Oh, how awesome.
So
the one I pulled was Pillar of Light, Descent of the Star of Isis, which I haven't looked up. It's not one I've pulled before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I have the books over there. I'll have to look at that in a minute.
But yeah, so I mean, beyond that, it was funny because I was like, well, I'm not even sure. Like everything, every day seems to resolve within itself so much that I'm like, I don't even know what to talk about today.
I know. And it's like, I don't want to say that it's all choppy and disconnected, but it's like every day has its own theme.
Yeah.
It is obviously feeding up to a bigger umbrella theme. But, you know, as of yet, it's kind of unclear as to how the pieces fit together. It's just a trusting to do.
Actually, that's what I said a lot last week to people, because a lot of wacky stuff is starting to come in, like seeing things like in their wholeness, right? But with no context. And it's like,
right.
Don't know how I'm going to get there, but okay, I'm just going to put that on the shelf right now because I don't have anything to connect it to. That's all right. Because that's all remembering beyond, or creating beyond remembering, right? So
well, and I see so much, and I hate to use the word death because it's not. I mean, it is a physical death, but it's like a conclusion or a resolution, and for some that is a death. But this was, at times felt that heavy earthly death, but once I worked through that, then it was like, oh yeah, it was, if that's what I chose for it to be, but really it's just the natural conclusion to that energy or dynamic or whatever it was at the time. But I kept, so much of that kept coming up last week, especially I think I texted you. I don't even remember what day that was. Was that Friday?
For which, about what?
Just the energy just almost seemed frenzied, and anxiety and sadness, and I just was like, wow. And I would go out there in meditation and go, I remember how to do this. I remember what this is. I remember what it looks like. I remember
and I
space I need to be in to allow this to pass.
Yeah, because I remember thinking, well, it's interesting because we usually think up a lot of, I was like, well, it was frenzied. I think we were all just experiencing it, but experience it in a way that was, whatever's passing through. And so when we have those moments, and that's it, that's all I do is I just am like, all right, I allow, I flow,
Right.
Because it was frenzied, but it wasn't like, I didn't have that anxiety I didn't even have time because things were so frenzied. It was just like literally one thing on top of the other. And I had some great conversations, just great conversations last week with people. I mean, really insightful on both ends, you know. It was just like things were rolling in clear, you know.
Right.
There are people that I talked to that had, you know, major epiphanies and like clarity come in, and for some major decisions in their lives, which is great.
It almost seemed like it was, for me, the end of the totally mental decisions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
And that had, and I hate to use the word had, that in order for me to do what I wanted to do, it required me to let that go.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to be comfortable in making the decisions from that place in the heart. And that's probably where the anxiety came from, is making that switch and trusting.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, all has to do with ego.
Oh, it's trusting 100%.
Oh, right.
Instead
right.
of trusting 80% and letting the mind, you know, kick in 20%.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, that's really, yeah. Yep. And it was, it was, a lot of realizations, a lot of epiphanies, you know, it was just a lot of like clarity in a clean cut way finally, which has been fuzzy for so long, right?
Well, and it's like in making the shift that I made from the head to the heart, it's like whether the door was, of course the door was always there, or whether it was open or closed or whatever, but it was like I could see it now, and not only could I see it, I could access what was behind it.
Yeah.
Coming from that other place.
Yeah. Yep.
And it just.
Well, you know, it's funny because it's like everything is rumbling, right? Because everything is like sort of crumbling around us. And, you know, like I had a couple of conversations last week. It's really funny, actually, just as an aside, that this realization that I came, which is great because I'm really redoing my site once I finish, you know, the Trinity, if I ever get to that. Not get to that. If I ever am happy with what I develop, because I keep on redoing it. But what came to me last week is that I'm like, really, one of my biggest gifts is that I'm a pusher, right? Which is funny because it sounds funny when you say that, like, you know, because you think drugs, right? But it's like,
actually, I didn't, but
it's funny when I say, well, I'm a pusher, but because it's really always been like, I've always been a support, like a person that's like, no, you can do this, like you can do this,
right.
Like, and then I push them off the cliff, that kind of thing.
Maybe you should look at it as a supporter.
Yeah, well, not really a supporter though, because you can support without being a pusher.
True.
I actually piss off people because, you know, I'll be like, no, you can do this. You know, why are you not doing this? Like, you know, like, that's what your guidance is. Why are you still, you know, like, it's sort of like I'm this voice of pushing, you know, that sometimes needs to be heard. Which I'm like, okay, so why am I not pushing like myself? But am I or am I not? I don't know. It's just sort of funny. But it was funny because I just realized there are a couple of things that in conversations last week, it was just sort of like I was guided to say that sort of brought on a lot of clarity for the other person. And I just, like, wow, it's so funny. I'm not even uncomfortable with that anymore because I know it just comes from love. It comes from guidance. Right. I don't, you know, it's not my interjection. And my cat is wanting to play, so he's pouncing my leg right now. So, you want to say no, Obi? No, you just want to play. And yeah, because there were, and sometimes it only takes like one thing, one statement, like to bring that light on of,
right,
how did I not see that before? You know,
right.
Which is funny.
I think that's gotten more and more. I think that's gotten stronger. Especially over the last week.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because that's why it's really interesting And I'm like, okay, so sometimes when I have several days, like, because I've blocked off a lot of time working on these websites and stuff, right? So I'll like have a couple of days of sessions and a couple of days of just, quiet work. And the couple of days of quiet work, sometimes I feel like I'm losing touch. And it's like, because sometimes, I hear myself talk in a conversation and be like, oh my God, like, how did I not hear that within myself, right?
Right.
For me, and that's my own pushing. So, yeah. And there's a real need, I don't want to say need for that, but right now it's important for us to continue to push ourselves off the ledge.
Because I think that that's where it has to come from, which makes that self-support so, so important that, I don't know, more important than anything, I think, right now.
Yeah, so got the wacky stuff going on too. So there's a lot of intergalactic stuff apparently going on. That's another thing that's really suddenly apparent and coming up everywhere.
Yep.
In sessions, very unusual, in my meditation, just in seeing things, just like bam in my face, bam in my face, bam in my face. And it's like, but the funny thing is that I keep on telling people is, don't get distracted by it, because it's just a macrocosm of the microcosm. Like, it's like, if you take away the faces, and okay, it's a little more interesting because it's different faces,
right? Different,
beings in different forms. Okay, but it's still the same thing playing out, whether it's in our individual realities, our collective. Obi, stop it.
Well, if you really think about it, if we have grown accustomed and are concluding all the pieces and parts of us that have been here,
yeah,
and have a familiar physiology, it would make sense that as that finalizes, new and different needs resolution too.
Right.
But
part of it, I think, is the recognition that it's just another form of the same thing going on.
Right.
So not to lose ourselves in the energy of that, even though it's a shiny for this moment.
Right.
Because it's like, I don't know, some weird stuff I told you about. Yeah, so just weird stuff.
Yeah. I just, we had a conversation and it triggered so much, like, oh, I can so see that. And I can so see that being temporarily more powerful, just because, like you said, it is a shiny.
I caught this little ear in right here. Sorry, he keeps on trying. I'm going to go to grab him. He runs away like, you're going to chase me. You going to say hello?
Gotten so big.
I know.
So pretty.
Yeah, he's almost a year. He'll be a year in a couple weeks. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to catch him once because maybe he'll leave me alone for
right.
It's like, oh no, she's just gonna hold me and squish on me. I want to play.
No kisses.
No kisses right now. That's for later. Different time of day. Yeah, so I'm sorry, so your last statement was?
They tend to be more distracting because it's got the different face or the different.
Oh, right.
And
because it's brightness, right? Because it's bright new, it's bright and shiny, and
right.
Oh, it's sexy because it's something different, But it was funny because so last week, a couple of things came up, and people keep on bringing up to me the whole Gaia.com thing, and I finally subscribed to that, and I was poking around on that. I watched a couple of pieces of things on there,
right?
And like one of them, it was funny because I busted out laughing. My husband and I were watching it. I busted out laughing. He's like, well, that's unusual for you. And I said, well, all right, take out the faces. Like, take out these were reptilians and Lyrians and Mayans and blah, 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 blah. And what? It's Russians and the Americans and, the Brits and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's no different. It's all the same. It's like we just made it sexier because it's some other package. And yet it's not that it's not happening. It's another, but it's all that you know, as within, so without, right? Or as without, so within. So it's, or as above, so below, however you want to look at it. It's like, it's just this concentric thing of what's resolving through the multiverse.
Right.
And so we can choose to be focused on visiting starships, and we can be, you know, and watching it play out that way, or we can choose to resolve it here, because we still have plenty of that crap going on here.
Exactly.
But it was funny because I was laughing and I said, well, this could be a political commentary, you know. It was like, but just like replace one phase for another, and it's just, you know, okay, it's sexier because it's another, you know, another race. But.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind for everybody who's watching, anybody who's watching this, because it's fun and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just to be aware of, it's just another level of concentricity of these realities that we're experiencing.
Right.
And that, I feel like, is going to be really important going forward, because it's going to be so easy. It's so much going on, because as these walls are collapsing between dimensions and
right.
and our, you know, these partitions, and as we're remembering things more holistically and we can see through dimensions and everything else, it can get really a little bit crazy and unnerving and overwhelming.
Yeah, very distracting.
Yeah, so the key is to, again, it always comes back to that focus on staying clear within ourselves. And maybe that's what that statement, did I say that when we were recording? It was before I was recording. The statement that came to me in meditation this morning about,
I think it was during the recording.
Yeah, whatever I said.
We didn't really talk before the recording.
I don't even remember what I said now. I transcend all, I transcend all limitations and allow all possibility.
Right.
Right. Those two statements, and holding yourself in that vibration, right? So to me, when I was seeing it out there, when I heard it or whatever out there, it was when I was looking at all these veils getting pulled out, right? I was looking at like the potential of getting lost in the current, in the what do they call, the riptide kind of thing.
Right.
And it was like it was like what it was really like the next level of what we talked about last week, which was that staying right at the front edge of the wave. Right. And it was just like, because things are starting to really peel back, the partitions are really starting to fall away. And I feel like it's ramping up so exponentially that, you know, everything happens at all of these different levels simultaneously. So however we want to choose to focus, it doesn't matter, because if we focus on that goes back to why we were getting the messages a couple weeks ago about finding the magical in the mundane, because sometimes the easiest thing for us to focus on is something that we think is mundane, but it actually, you know, ripples out to all these different levels of consciousness.
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense now. Well, I'm glad we talked that out. I'm glad for these Monday morning conversations. I know. But let's see. Because like I said, a lot of stuff, a lot of conversations, a lot of odd things were coming up, and I've been seeing us again, like things, and like right. I haven't really had visions like that for a while, and all of a sudden I'm just like, okay, and it has a potential to be distracting, and it's like, nope, putting you on the shelf too. Nope, putting you on the shelf too. One thing at a time. It was funny. I was having a conversation with somebody about that last week, and the person goes, "So like what?" And I'm like, all right, I'll just say one thing, because I could just go through a whole list of them. That's the good part about journaling. You know, I always tell people, really, so many like think of journaling as this like chore, but it really is helpful in terms of processing. Sometimes that's the talking to ourselves that we need to see it, you know, reflect back to us and be like, oh, wait a second, you know. And sometimes that's where we put it on the shelf, because it's like, okay, I wrote it in here so I can recall it later, you know, and go back and read it when I need to.
Right.
because I feel like just so much is going to go on in so many different directions. It's already starting to go, like, so much.
It really is. It really is. And, God, who knows when this was, being the calm in that storm.
Yeah.
And being able to keep that perspective. And I think that a lot has to do with the trust, to be able to keep that perspective to allow things to just go ahead and do what it needs to do.
Right. Yep.
I don't know. I found that, anytime I start to get pulled under, so to speak, is just remembering that I know how to do this.
Yeah. And focus. Okay, focus on something. Whether it's scrubbing off your deck or, painting your cabinets or whatever, it's
that's right.
And sometimes we need those mundane things to help us to bring focus back to where is important.
Right. It's almost like it occupies and distracts the mind to allow other things to do what they need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It distracts those physical senses.
Yeah. Yeah, because it makes you focus physically on one thing.
Right. Right.
That's very right now. Yeah. And that's just the most important thing, which sounds so simple, that whole presence thing, right? That,
Yeah.
Although I've been pretty good about that lately.
I have too. And that's been a recent shift.
Yeah. And the funny thing is we have so much going on in our household that it's really interesting, because I'll get a wisp. All of a sudden I'll get the wisp of the mind trying to say, wait a minute, like, what's all this going on? And then it's like, shh, nope. We got this, one moment at a time.
Right.
It's all good. We got it. And I keep on seeing that coming up for me over and over again, is like what the website and, or the websites and, like what can we have, our black belt test in Kung Fu coming up in a month and a half. And, like my mind started to go, holy crap, what am I doing? What did we commit to? Because it's a pretty big task.
Well, and then you've got college graduations.
Yeah, college graduation, yeah, and then another one going away for 2 years and graduating from the 2 year, and yup. And it's just and house thing, coming back to that, and it's like, okay, every day is one day at a time. And then we have this whole thing come up with Scott with his, he's supposed to be graduating with his MBA in June, and there was this whole weird hiccup. Did I tell you about that last week? Yeah. So anyway, so it was interesting. There's this whole weird hiccup about his, and I'll just really compact it, but there's a whole hiccup with his capstone paper where he sort of fell through the cracks, even though he's been consistently in the program for the whole thing, and blah, blah, blah. So now they keep on so they tried to set him up with an advisor to get this moving really quickly. They're going to let him do this on an independent study so he can get done. And the person came back and said, well, I'm not even available until May. Oh. And then, so Scott goes back to the head of the program and says, this person is available to May, give me somebody else. So then the guy sends another email out copying 2 other advisors and Scott, and they both came back and said, they're not available till May, right? So what was funny was Scott said to me, he turns to me in Kung Fu on Saturday and he goes, you know what? He said, I'm wondering if the universe is telling me I need to just focus on this test because our test is in May, the Kung Fu test.
Right.
And after that, then I can focus 100% on the paper because it's a lot to do.
And then still finish at the same time.
Pretty much, yeah. So I'm like, no, that's pretty insightful. Yeah, and I mean, it's sort of yeah, he keeps on trying to fight it, and it comes back another 2 that nope, we're not available till May. It's like, well, you could spend more energy fighting it, right? Or ask, well, then how am I supposed to be fluid to this? And he's been stressing out, honestly, because he's like, I don't know, I'm going to do the paper and study and practice for this Kung Fu test.
Right.
It's like crazy. We've got to memorize.
Well, it's almost like if you just focus on the end result of being finished and graduated in June, then however it falls into place from now till then.
Yeah, and he's like, and he goes, in all honesty, since it's a rolling program, he's like, if I finish it over the summer, it's still no big deal.
Right.
If it's not June, if it ends up being August, he's like, is it really going to make that much of a difference?
Right. It's not like the undergraduate kind of thing where, oh, my lease is up and this. And
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because when we stepped back and thought about it, it's like, well, does it really make that much of a difference? It really doesn't.
unless you have to come up with another tuition payment to cover that expanded time.
No, because it's still only going to be one more payment, which is work will reimburse anyway. So.
Right. So, yeah.
There's still only going to be one more payment that covers the other 2 classes that are the the final thing for the capstones or whatever. Right. So yeah, that won't be a big deal. And his company covers it anyway. So that'll be fine. It's just a matter of, it's like, what? Okay, so then it's a couple months more out that he's got to stay for 2 more years, And I said, like, and if that something came up, which I feel like it's going to, it's not going to be a big deal anyway,
Right.
So when he said that, I sort of felt into it, and I was like, yeah, you know what? That feels sort of right. It's sort of weird that it's like May. Just wait. You've got college graduation. You've got a black belt Kung Fu in May. Just wait. Do you want to make yourself crazy?
Right.
So, because I mean, yeah. So it's, and that's the thing. That's what I keep on telling people too, is listen, pay attention.
Right.
If you're hitting your head up against one thing over and over again, like, then step back and say, okay, then obviously this isn't the direction for me right now. What is, and if I flowed with this, where will it take me? And then what's highest and best? That feels like what's really, really important. And that's why the focus is important. The presence is important, because if you get too lost in the, oh, well, just because, he wanted to make sure he got it in June, it was just like all this stuff. And it's like, well, it's a matter of saying, okay, really, is it going to be, if I'm setting myself for ease and flow and fun, and that's my prerequisite, and my higher self is saying, okay, if you want ease and flow and fun and not have a freaking mental breakdown, let's do this way. And so that's where we take the mind out of the way altogether and just say that whole, like, okay, what feels right?
Right, which gets to the senses of the heart.
Yeah.
Versus the senses of the mind. Yeah.
Like, in the bigger picture, does it really matter?
Right.
And when you hear no, and the mind tries to say, but, that's where you say, shh, no, we're trusting this, even if we don't see why.
Right.
I said, honestly, it could be what if he ends up, like, even if they did hold his diploma until like December, which I don't think they would if he finished it this summer. But even if they did, I was like, well, then doesn't that give you another 6 months before you got to pay back the loan? Because he had to take a small loan to cover the part that his work didn't cover.
Correct. Yeah.
The student loan. I said, and then by then the house might be gone. We might have the money from that you could just pay it off. And maybe that's the way the universe is setting it up for us. Who knows? Why don't we just trust it?
Yeah. Who are we to say we know better?
Yeah. And it's like,
yourself has already arranged all this.
If we want ease and flow and joy and fun and prosperity and however we want to set it up, then
allow it.
Then allow it to happen. That right. Transcending limitations and allowing all possibilities.
Right. Right.
Because when we say allowing all possibilities, it is the stuff that's beyond the mind.
Right. And stop judging what your mind sees.
Yeah. Yep. And I tell people things. I tell people that all the time, right? So then we're the hardest students of ourselves, right? So yeah.
It's self-pushing.
That's right. I'm pushing myself off the cliff again. So yeah, I feel like that's the theme for everyone. Like, nobody I know has small things going on in their lives. I mean, it's all like,
no,
it's all big, no matter what.
Dealing with small potatoes.
Yeah. It's like when you come up with a small problem now, it's like, oh, whatever, it's not even a problem. It's so funny. Our perspective's all changed on that. It's like, well, yeah, whatever. So maybe that's what we focus on today. Is just that presence, the trust, the staying transcendent to limitations, or if we want to say free of limitations and open to all possibility and allowing all possibilities, so that it, like, I think everyone that I know is pretty much set on the ease and flow and fun thing.
Right. Well, and to to allow yourself to embrace the expansion.
Right.
And to embrace the freedom of the expansion. Ooh, that feels good.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And to allow everything as it comes to you without having to force it to connect the dots, which is that whole idea of putting it on the shelf until it needs to come off again and be connected. Right. And maybe
there's a certain amount of trust that has to be involved in that.
Right.
To say it's okay to put it on the shelf.
Right.
Because I trust that when it is appropriate, I will have allowed it to just be there.
Right. Well, and it's like it's like when you're doing some kind of complicated recipe, right? And sometimes you have little recipes within the recipe.
Right.
Right. And that seems like what we're doing right now is we're doing all the prep work.
Right.
Here we're doing the frosting, we're doing this, we're doing the ganache, we're putting it on the side, we're letting it sit for the filling, blah, blah, blah. And now, and then that's got to freeze or that's got to sit and, and rise or however, like whatever that is. And it's like, okay. And so if we think of all the things that feel like they have no context right now, that's really maybe what it feels like we're doing is little mini recipes of, okay, you might need to tend to this for, 2 days and then it'll be time to tend to this. And when we allow it without that judgment and say, okay, well, I'm committed to being in the flow and letting it be easy and fun and whatever. And when you do all that stuff in its wholeness, right? Like think about when you do that kind of complicated recipe, if you do all those little mini recipes and then let them all just sort of sit, then when you're ready to put it all together, it just go bang, 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 bang. And it flows together.
It's almost like you've had somebody, a sous chef that has everything chopped and ready to go.
Exactly, except we're our own sous chefs. So we're the sous chef and the executive chef. And we keep on saying, well, dang it, I thought we were supposed to have help with this. It's like,
it's ourselves.
Exactly. It's me, myself, and I. And you're me anyway, so what's the difference, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, that's what it feels like, is that whatever you just said, that felt really good on top of the whole like presence and acceptance and allowance and, transcending limitations and being free of limitations and allowing all possibility and accepting what comes to you right now, even without context.
Right. Yeah. We're finding the trust of it too.
Yeah. Well, because that's really a lot of trust.
Yeah. Yep. It really is.
Because when you say, well, I was guided to, stop doing this and just do this for an entire day, which could seem completely unrelated, others could, think you're getting a little bonkers or distracted or whatever. And it's like, well, but if you're true to your own guidance and you ask if this is highest and best right now.
Right.
And that's what I always tell people too, is so if you're guided to do something, usually if you're really strong in your guidance, you can tell if it's guidance or distraction, right? Mm-hmm. But there's no harm in stopping and asking, okay, is this truly like guidance or is this just a distraction from something I don't want to do? The realization that I came to last week in another conversation was, the frustration I've had, which is an ego word, right? With getting the Trinity website redone and holding up my other website is, because I keep on doing it. And then I'm like, no, it's not the right vibration. And then I do it again. And I've been I'm on the 5th iteration now.
Right. No, I get it.
And it's fine. And I kept on thinking, is it me? Am I, do I have a block? Is it blah, blah, blah? And I kept on getting no. But it's also my persistence that I have to get this done, right? Versus it might not be time to have it done yet.
Right.
And I think it's actually coming to the time when it's supposed to be done. But
That's what I feel.
Yeah. So but it's been like, okay, so could I have, not banged my head against the wall and wasted all that time doing that? I could have.
Of course.
But, but that's sometimes that stubbornness that still comes in every once in a while but I was guided to get this done. And then it's like, but we're guided to get it done right now. No, it's the mind that says it should be done right now. I should already have it redone.
But it's also what you've been going through supported your end product.
Yeah.
So so you can't judge whether you can't judge any of it, because all of that was necessary and perfect.
Yeah.
Bring you to the vibration that you want to put on the side.
Right. Because ultimately nothing is a waste of time.
Right.
It's all there for a certain reason. Now, eventually when you become more conscious about stuff, and there are things where I always say a waste of energy or whatever, but look at all the energy you're putting to stuff. But it's like, well, but you learn eventually so that you don't put the energy to it. Because you're like, well, look at all the time I wasted, or how much longer, not time I wasted, look at how much longer it took me to complete this, because I wasn't fully listening to guidance and I was trying to sort of bulldoze my way through it.
Well, and there's also no such thing as time.
Right. It doesn't even exist anyway. Nothing exists anyway. It's just illusions. So.
Right.
Although I keep on saying, okay, so how about if I just envision the site and it's just there?
Right.
So
you remember what it's supposed to look like, feel like, and say.
Yes. Yeah. At this point, in this vibration, and that's with the intentions that we have. So yeah, we'll put that in there too. How about
that? Right, that too.
That too. All right, all of that. You ready?
I am.
All right.
was awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was all these layers. It started like, and it was really contracted. It was almost like a kaleidoscope, like flower that kept on opening and wider and wider. I was like, oh.
Yeah, that was just, and I feel squeegeed. Like the energy was so cleansed, like with the squeegee, squeezing all the.
It felt really good. Although I don't know what my cat decided, my other cat decided to come in and start playing. Did you hear her?
I did.
They have their little shanty town back here that they've made like with boxes and packing paper that they like play around, which is why there's sort of a mess behind me. And it's funny because they play in it all the time. It's like their favorite play during the day. So, Obi probably went back to sleep, and she came in and she's like, oh, well, I'm going to play in the paper. And you hear it all crinkling.
Yeah.
And I was like, shh. She just felt it. She just felt it and perked up, and that was part of what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because my 2 cats came in.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, you want some of this?
Yeah, maybe that's what she was like, hey, this feels good. I want to play in this. Yeah, that was really nice. And I saw, like, I can't even describe to you what I saw. It was like a lot of stuff. It was almost like watching electrical impulses everywhere. Like, and then some would like match up together, and then others would match up together in different ways. And then it just started to come together in the bigger picture. And you didn't even have to see what all those impulses were. It was just all of a sudden it just felt like, oh yeah, feel that expansion.
Yeah. The connection to the expansion.
Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah, it was almost like plugging into that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Very delicious. Very good. Obviously, she's still sitting here looking at me now like, are you going to play? According to the cats, they don't understand why I do anything but play with them during the day.
Right.
Why are you sitting at that thing again? Why are you talking to somebody?
I have one that stalks me and just waits for me to sit down, so she's in my lap.
Yeah. They're funny. All right. Well, that was actually really nice. That was very clean. Felt very clean.
It was. Yeah.
Like we're tweaking some really important things now.
Right.
Collectively.
Yeah. Alignment.
Yeah. Alignment's like the key word of the month, I think.
I know. It's like, it's like when you're stretching to get something just connected, and it's like, okay, just let me get it connected, then I'll come back and make it nice kind of thing. That's what I feel like we've been doing, is stretching to make that connection. And this just went, okay, now we're going to make it feel good, look good, sound good, taste good, all those things. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, as usual, fabulous topic.
Yeah.
Love
really
it.
nice.
Continue to just build. And every time it was like, well, what else is there to do? It's like, nope, there's still more.
I know.
Still more. So cool. Well, thank you. And anybody who's joined us, thank you. And we'll see you next time.